Well, guys, up in Summit County, Utah, the county of my childhood, the place where my people are from, Kouri Richins is on trial for the murder of her husband, Eric Richins. And the thing that has occurred to me on this one, because we have seen so much evidence throughout the investigation and leading up to the trial, it feels like there's just a mountain of evidence against Kouri Richins. However, if there's anything that I've learned reporting on trials, it is that you cannot count on a jury to see things the way the prosecution wants them to see it. And are there holes? Are there ways where the defense might be able to eke in some reasonable doubt? And who better to have here to talk about this is former prosecutor and defense attorney Josh Ritter from Courtroom Confidential. So stick with me, and we'll get into it. This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello there, my friend, and welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. If you'd like to cut through the sensationalism and the fluff of true crime, you have found the right place. Boy, I'm glad you did. Thank you for joining me. Wherever you're joining me from, please tell me in the comments where you're joining me from. I love reading through that. And speaking of being glad about something, I am extremely glad today to be joined by my friend Joshua Ritter from Courtroom Confidential to help us dig into this case. Josh, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
I'm glad you're here. You know, when I started thinking about, there was a case. I don't know if you followed the murder of Kirby Carpenter down in Mississippi. It's at the hands of, well, allegedly at the hands of Jeff Spence, who's a local to my area. And it came back as a hung jury, and I could not believe it. And that seems to be about the umpteenth trial where I've thought they have got so much evidence stacked against this defendant, and a jury still can't convict.
Yeah.
Is it possible that this might happen in the Kouri Richins case?
I mean, it's possible. To your point, it can happen in any case. I mean, I have this conversation with clients all the time. Like the most unpredictable thing in the world is 12 jurors. If you really are heading to trial, it is because you've exhausted every other option. Because listen, we have a great system in this country. It's the best system, I think, on earth, and I truly do believe that. But at times it does feel like a crapshoot, and things can happen. You can barely get 12 people to agree on what they want for lunch. So try getting them to agree on something as complex as a circumstantial murder case, and who knows how it's going to turn out. Now, I've been doing this long enough that I have faith in the system, and I think that you can generally see what direction a trial is going in before it ends up in the hands of jurors. But sometimes they do incredibly unpredictable things. And like you said, we both could sit here and probably list case after case where we were shocked, even if that shock comes down to a hung jury, which is not entirely, seems to happen more often than we would hope too. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that the evidence in this case is fairly convincing, but is there room for a clever defense attorney to cause enough questions and enough doubt that some of those jurors might not be so convinced? Absolutely.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about these things, I go back to my time. I served on a jury in a double homicide case like 20 years ago, maybe closer to 25 years ago. I may have shared this with you, and my viewers who watch me all the time, they've heard this story way too many times. But it was a double homicide, and I sat in the jury box, juror number 2, looking at this trial for an entire week and thinking, man, this is going to be the easiest decision of our lives. And it was coming up on Thanksgiving. I'm like, good, we're going to be able to go out of town for Thanksgiving like we were planning. We get into the jury room, and it was like 8 of those people were sitting in a different trial. I could not believe it. And I think that sometimes like personal their personal hangups, right? In the case of that jury that I was sitting on, this was a young man who was a juvenile being tried as an adult, and there were just people that were hung up on that. Like
Yeah.
I can't put a 17-year-old in prison for the rest of his life, even though it's pretty convincing that he shot two men, right? It's just,
Oh, that kind of stuff happens all the time. When I was early in my career as a prosecutor, they would tell us, even when you had an acquittal, even when you lost, go talk to the jurors because maybe you're going to learn some information. And I quickly found that that was never helpful because some of the stuff that people got hung up on was stuff that would drive you nuts if you knew what they were thinking about. I'll tell one quick story. I don't
yeah.
want to like spend our time telling war stories, but because it just sticks with me to this day. About I had a trial early on where it was about some young women who had been assaulted while walking to school. A guy had run up, grabbed them, assaulted them, and then ran off. And it happened to two or three different girls, and they identified this guy. Well, the way that they did it was with a six-pack photo array, a six-pack lineup on pictures. And I thought the whole thing went incredibly well. I thought the witnesses did fairly well, and we had positive IDs, and then we got this guy, and he, everything about it, I felt very confident. And it came back not guilty, thank God, but a hung jury. And I'm like, what in the world? So I went and talked to the jurors and said, I remember this one juror. I'm like, what more would you have wanted to know? Like, because I thought, was there some piece of evidence I held back because I took it for granted? Like, what more would have you wanted to know to convince you? And this one juror goes, well, where did you get the other pictures in the photo array? Where did those pictures all come from? And I just remember being like, wow, these people are back there sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes just talking about the most wild, off the wall stuff. How are you going to predict that? So you're right. I mean, it's just sometimes sometimes you've lost the case before you've even begun your opening statements because somehow somebody made it on that jury that is just never going to be convinced.
Yeah. Well, getting to the Kouri Richins thing here, let's bring up Mrs. Richins photos here. There were a couple things that I was going through, leading up to this trial for the 3 years leading up to this trial. We covered the case. We read the affidavits of probable cause, a lot of the filings along the way. The and I know that the prosecutions, this is like the first thing that I know I titled this video, 3 things that could possibly go wrong. Something I can't remember exactly what title I put on here. But anyway, one of the things was that there's no, the prosecution believes that she put fentanyl in his Moscow Mule. But
Right.
there's no direct evidence that that is the case because the glass got washed and a couple of other things, right? I want to pick your brain a little bit, and I'd like to focus on victims here. We should have Eric's picture up here. Um, I'd like to talk a little bit about like direct evidence versus circumstantial evidence, and talk a little bit about what each one is. And you even said, this is a circumstantial case. So, if you watch TV, you're watching Law and Order, or you're watching, Lincoln Lawyer or something like that. You go, oh no, dear, it's a circumstantial case. This is never going to go. But almost every case I've covered has been almost entirely circumstantial. There's hardly ever direct evidence tying a defendant, at least in my areas I've been covering these things. So can you real quick just define, as an attorney, a learned person, what is the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence?
Sure. And you're right. Most evidence is circumstantial, and most cases are circumstantial. Direct evidence is the way the law defines it is direct evidence is where the person testifying, you don't have to draw any conclusion from their testimony. So a person says, I was looking and I saw clouds in the sky and raindrops coming down from those clouds. That is direct evidence. I saw it directly of it raining. Circumstantial evidence is that, and I'm using this example because this is the one they always give in court when they're trying to explain this to jurors. Circumstantial evidence would be you're sitting inside, you can't see outside. Somebody comes into the house. They are covered in water. They're wearing a raincoat and they're drying out an umbrella. All of that is circumstantial evidence that it's raining outside, though you didn't directly see it raining. But because you have to make one extra step, a logical step from everything that you saw to draw the conclusion that it was raining outside. So many things, when you think about it that way, are circumstantial evidence. And when people are trying to say that circumstantial evidence is not as strong, I go, well, guess what is circumstantial is DNA. We think of DNA as being about the strongest evidence out there that exists. That's circumstantial evidence. If you find DNA on a desktop, that the logical direct evidence is that they found DNA, right? The
Right.
logical conclusion is that somebody left it there, meaning that somebody had to have been in that room and touched that desktop to have left it there. But you do have to make one logical step away from the direct evidence of they collected DNA. They collected a fingerprint. That is the direct evidence. The circumstantial conclusion you can draw from that is somebody left that fingerprint there by touching that object. And so when you begin to think about it that way, there's plenty of circumstantial evidence that we find and accept and is very convincing to us. And so in this case, there's no eyewitness to Kouri Richins putting fentanyl in his glass. Even if there was fentanyl found in the glass, tested for it, you still have to draw the conclusion that she put it there, right? I mean, all you would have was that it tested positive for fentanyl. Still doesn't tell us who had access to it and who put it there. So yeah, this is a circumstantial case, but it's got a lot of compelling circumstantial evidence. I think where people begin to kind of not even criticize, but begin to kind of point at the weaknesses, if there are any in the prosecution case, is that this case is heavily reliant on motive. That yes, we don't have an eyewitness to her doing it, but the reason we're telling you she did it is because look at all the other motive evidence saying she's the only one that had a reason to do it.
Yeah. Okay. So say you're the defense attorney on this one. And by the way, one of the things that I get a kick out of in our little hobby of being true crime watchers is just the ease at which we will kind of direct our negative feelings, our hate toward defense attorneys. It's really easy for us to like, ooh, they're representing this evil person,
Yeah.
therefore that
Yeah.
evil is rubbed off on them, right? But
Yeah.
I was in a jury selection one time where Judge Loba, I remember his name, said, there's going to be presentations from the prosecution and the defense, and our system is set up so that if I told them right now they have to switch places, they should be able to. The prosecutor should be able to defend this person, and the defense should be able to prosecute this person. That's the way the system works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the defense attorney and we withhold our judgment from you for being the defense attorney of Kouri Richins, how do you poke holes in that problem that there is no direct evidence that ties Kouri Richins to the poisoning via fentanyl of her husband, Eric Richins? What would you do to plant that reasonable doubt?
Well, yeah, number one, and they're already doing this, is they're trying to make it as though an element of the crime is that you have to show that she had access to the fentanyl. That they want to make a big argument of the fact that the prosecution, I mean, cannot place fentanyl in Kouri Richins' hands. And that's true. And that's just the state of affairs for the prosecution. And they're going to have to somehow convince jurors other than that. But I think the defense is doing a fairly admirable job of making it almost sound like that is requisite to a conviction, is that you have to be able to show she had fentanyl, access to fentanyl in her hands herself. The other is they've already got a built-in kind of advantage here with one of their witnesses going backwards on the prosecution, the Crozier, the drug seller is already saying, I didn't even sell fentanyl at that time. I think they're going to try to exploit that to a great degree with the similar argument of saying, look at even the star witness for the prosecution can't put fentanyl on the table here. And then I think that all dovetails into, I think their overall argument is that, listen, this is not a case where he's got a bullet hole in his head. This is not a case where he's got a knife sticking out of his chest. This is a case where he died from an overdose of a drug that is an epidemic in our society.
Yeah.
There are thousands of people who die every single year from fentanyl overdose. And that is a tragedy, but we don't charge every single one of those cases as a murder, because this is an unfortunate world we live in where people do accidentally overdose from fentanyl. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Sometimes that happens with people who take drugs recreationally and are not, quote unquote, drug abusers. And this is the unfortunate case here with Eric, is that he happened to get himself a hot dose of whatever it was he was taking that happened to be laced with an incredibly powerful drug. And it unfortunately took his life. But don't all of a sudden say that Kouri is guilty for it.
Yeah.
Those are the arguments that I think they're going to make.
And I think it's a good argument.
Yeah.
And you brought up exactly the second kind of point that I found, was that the drug supply chain is rather murky, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying that he died from fentanyl poisoning, but what was the actual delivery of that? It's they've got a lot of video, they've got text messages, they've got lots of things that are pointing in the direction of where that supply chain was. But I do think that the defense can also kind of point, like you just said, to, we don't know who is recreationally using drugs. Your children could be doing it right now, and it's so prolific and it's so available that why would you think that my client was doing this, besides the whole $7.5 million in debt and trying to change his insurance policy, all those things. Yeah. Right. So, actually, let me ask you another legal question here. One of the things that I think jurors have a problem with when they get into deliberate, again, speaking from personal experience, is understanding that doctrine of what is reasonable doubt, rather than what is just doubt, right? This, again, going back to the Jeff Spence trial on the murder of Kirby Carpenter, man, that attorney was really good, and it was in the South, so it kind of felt like we were watching Matlock or something. He was just very good at planting seeds of doubt. And when the jury gets their charge, the judge is going to tell them, this is what reasonable doubt is. And usually the judge reads it verbatim from the law and I've even seen juries go, can you explain that to me? And they will say, I cannot, but I can read this to you again, right?
Yeah.
So when you get into the jury room, understanding that legal doctrine of reasonable doubt is actually really tough, especially when somebody's life is in the balance and you start to have those feelings of guilt, like, what if I get this wrong? I would rather err on the side of caution than not, right?
Sure.
So can you explain to us the difference between doubt and reasonable doubt?
No. It is one of the most highly contested attorneys. You're right. The reason it's so difficult is because it is so heavily litigated on how you define it, that's why when there is a jury instruction on it, in each jurisdiction has their own jury instruction on it. Lawyers, judges, certainly, no one wants to go outside of that, because there's been so much litigation over what those exact words should be. The kind of a running joke with defense attorneys is, you say, well, listen, you're all reasonable people, so if any one of you have a doubt, well, then that's a reasonable doubt. The problem is that it is kind of a feeling. The way that it's defined in California is as an abiding conviction, which is essentially a feeling. Do you have a gut feeling that is so strong that you feel confident in the guilt of this person as you will today, as you imagine you will tomorrow, as you imagine you will a year, 10 years, and 50 years from now. Well, that's all a feeling. That's all just kind of, hypothetical mumbo jumbo that people have to play in their head. I think the best way of understanding it is what is it not? Well, it's not questions, that's for sure. It's not unanswered questions. And I've always tried to make this clear to jurors is that I fully intend to prove to you this case beyond a reasonable doubt as it is the elements of the crime charged. I will prove to you each element charged beyond a reasonable doubt. But I cannot answer every possible question that you're going to have in this case. You're all smart people. You're going to come up with little mysteries along the way that I cannot possibly answer. So it's not just mysteries, it's not just questions, and it's also not just doubts, because you can have doubts, but do those rise to the level that are so reasonable, first of all, that you feel like you cannot have confidence in this today, tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. And again, it comes down to a feeling of, people just kind of checking their gut about this whole thing. And that's why it's so difficult to understand.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard those jury instructions so many times, and I'm always left wondering, well, what is reasonable doubt? And actually, that's kind of a feature of the law, is that there's always an argument, right? There's
Yeah.
always a
Yeah.
way to see it. It's not a shortcoming of the law. It's a built-in feature. I know the jury instructions here in Pennsylvania, they say a reasonable doubt is a doubt that would cause you to change, given new information, it would cause you to change your behavior. And I've heard that instruction several times be given to jurors. And every time I look over at the juror box to see how are they receiving this instruction, they only look more confused.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Okay, Susie Q420 asks us, why do you think Eric didn't go to the police? He did express concerns that his wife was trying to kill him when he had the sandwich, and he changed his trust, the beneficiaries. He was concerned that Kouri was trying to kill him. At least that's I think a reasonable conclusion to draw. Why do you think he didn't go to the police?
Because I think he just couldn't believe it himself. I think how difficult a thing is that to say or admit to yourself, my wife's really trying to kill me. And like, I'm going to call the police because I fully believe she's trying to kill me. I think he was an incredibly long-suffering and forgiving person. I mean, she stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from him. She forged documents. She had powers of attorney put in his name, and he forgave her, and again and again. And who knows what kind of conversations they had behind closed doors about, oh, she made a mistake and you got to forgive me and all of this stuff. But he was incredibly long-suffering and forgiving. Now, he was also not a complete dummy. I mean, he was making moves behind the scenes where he was, setting up a trust and keeping her out of it and setting up his life insurance in such a way. And having conversations with others about his concerns about her. But I think that, maybe he, in his heart of hearts, was hoping it would all kind of work itself out. Maybe he was thinking that, okay, well, she's done some really bad stuff, but I just can't imagine her doing something this bad. I mean, I think you got to imagine what was going through this poor guy's mind to actually think the mother of his children might be trying to take his life. And I think he just thought, I can't go to the cops with this.
Yeah, it's a good question from Susie, and I think that you've probably hit the nail on the head. Especially if you've had like happy times, right? You're like, again, mother of my children. We have 3 boys together. We have a happy life together. I can't believe that she would do that. But that's something that, at least on my channel, we try really hard to learn, right? It's very easy to Monday morning quarterback, and it's very easy to slip into victim blaming, and we don't want to do that, but we do want to learn from these things, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm constantly saying is, if somebody signals to you that they mean you harm, you should believe them.
Yeah.
Now, in Eric's defense, I think if he went to the police, I don't think there's anything that they could have done.
I mean, what would he have gone to the police with? I ate a sandwich on Valentine's Day and I felt really weird. I'd like you to investigate my wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can imagine him getting laughed out of the station for that kind of a thing. I think the guy was in a real tough spot. He's living with this woman. She's the mother of his children. He's probably thinking about his children way more than she certainly was. And, uh, completely frustrated and at his wit's end with the idea that her financial problems are becoming his financial problems and he can't trust her. I mean, I really feel awful. The guy was in a living nightmare before this all turned deadly for him.
Yeah, and at the same time trying to live a normal life and keep his family fed and roof over their head and all the things that, I mean, if you think about just the daily living, I mean, that takes up 98% of just the bandwidth that you have, right? And then
Yeah.
trying to deal with somebody who means you harm, that's got to take it well over the edge. Okay, the third thing. So the three things that I think are possible that the defense can successfully kind of plant the seeds of reasonable doubt are no direct evidence that she administered the fentanyl, right? The drug supply chain is murky, as you brought up, and then the third one is that Eric himself did have or could have had access to drugs and alcohol. We do know that he had access to alcohol, but we already talked about this a little bit. You never know who may be addicted to to drugs, who might be recreationally using. I think about as a parent, Kimberly and I have 5 kids, three of which are adults. Actually, I even think about myself. I was back in California, as you know, I was hanging out with my parents, and it seems like every time I go back there, I'm now 50 years old. I have to, I have a session where I come clean about all the stupid things that I did that they didn't know about, right? And our kids are starting to do that with us, right? Right? So it's very easy to get away with things innocent and not so innocent under the noses of all the people that we love and are around us. Who knows if Eric was a recreational drug user?
Yeah.
Nobody, right?
Yeah, and here's I talked about he didn't have a bullet hole in his head, he didn't have a knife in his chest. He also didn't have cyanide in his system, like an easily identifiable deadly poison. He had a drug in his system that unfortunately is being used by people who abuse it and also being laced into other drugs that people,
Right.
recreational drugs that people take. So again, it's like the mechanism of the murder makes it difficult to say whether or not this was homicide or whether or not this was accidental, to the point that even the medical examiner struggles to make that determination. I had Joseph Scott Morgan. Do you know him
Oh yeah.
on our channel? Please,
Yeah,
shameless
everybody
plug.
go over
Please go
there.
check out the episode.
Courtroom
Anybody, if you
Confidential.
want to see it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we were talking about just this issue with fentanyl. He said imagine 3 grains of table salt. That small amount, that is how much fentanyl you need to kill somebody. 3 grains of table salt. It is so small. And the point of that is drug dealers are using this to enhance other drugs, not like cut drugs. They're not like taking cocaine and adding a bunch of fentanyl so that they can have more yield of cocaine to sell. But they're taking it and they're adding it to things like cocaine and other drugs to enhance the effects of it so that people want their drugs, right? Oh, this guy's got
Yeah.
really good cocaine or what have you, when it's really got an extra kick because they've added fentanyl to it. Well, do you trust the people who are drug dealers and adding things like fentanyl to their drugs to put in the right amounts of this stuff? So that's another kind of built-in issue of this, is that people do unfortunately get lethal doses of fentanyl in other drugs. I mean, I
Yeah.
anecdotally, a friend of mine I'm not going to name him for the reason of the story I'm about to tell, but said that he had recently gone to a, kind of Hollywood sort of New Year's party where there were drugs there, and they had also testing strips available to people in case they wanted to test the drugs, just to be careful, because it's the world that we live in, that who knows what can be laced into some of these things. That's the argument that the defense is going to make. You don't know. He doesn't have to be a hardened drug abuser. He doesn't have to have a drug history a mile long. He could have just every once in a while liked to take himself whatever ecstasy, cocaine, whatever kind of a drug, and he just happened to get himself a hot dose and it killed him. But don't point the finger at our client.
Yeah. There's a question from Jules of me. Did or why didn't they test his hair? I guess the implication there is to try to determine if he was a long-term drug user or something like that. I haven't seen any evidence about that. I don't think the prosecution has done anything like that. But man, that is here in Pennsylvania and in a lot of other states in the nation. There are now they are holding drug dealers responsible for deaths. I mean, I follow things all the time where there will be 5 deaths in podunk nowhere, Pennsylvania, and then 3 years later, a whole series of people get arrested and charged with drug delivery, resulting in death. Because this whole the way that you described it is exactly the way it is. They're not cutting it. They're not trying to make it cheaper. They're trying to make the high higher. They're trying to make
Mm-hmm.
the addictive properties of it more addicting so that people will chase that high. And it's not like we've got the world's greatest chemists putting this together either. We've got, well, in some cases there probably are, but on the street anyway, when they're lacing with fentanyl, man, that is a huge revelation that I didn't know. 3 grains of table salt of fentanyl is enough to kill a person, according to Joseph. So yeah, they're just trying. It's an economic incentive, right? They want more people to be addicted so they can sell more drugs. And if the trade off on that is that a few junkies die, in their words, right? That it's okay. There will be plenty more customers. So when we're talking 5 times the lethal dose, we're not talking very much at all.
No, we're talking 15 grains of salt. We're talking about a very small amount. Now, that's in its pure form, right? We don't
Yeah.
know if she was being supplied it in tablet form, where they're going to add other fillers and stabilizers to create the tablets, or if it's in some kind of liquid form. I know that it can also be purchased in. Um, but yeah, we're not talking much at all. That is, I mean, it's like a drug that we've never seen before. Really, because it's synthetic and it's so powerful. It really is like nothing that we've ever had to deal with, which is why we're seeing so many deaths involved in it, because it is so incredibly powerful and deadly that it's hard to control what people are taking. And yeah, people can start to build up a tolerance to it like they can with any other street drug, but it does. We're talking, from one dosage to a little bit stronger could be enough to kill you. And
Yeah.
maybe you do have a problem and you're looking for something a little bit stronger, but that a little bit stronger is just enough to kill you.
Yeah, the threading the needle there as you're
Yeah,
chasing the higher high, it's
great
just
way of
really
putting it. Yeah.
dangerous. Really dangerous. Okay, so we've talked about the ways that the defense might be able to plant these seeds of doubt. What do you think the prosecution has to do, or have they been doing it well in order to kind of counter what some of these things that we've identified in the case?
I think they've been doing a good job. I think they have it's heavy on motivation, but that's a good thing, because you do need to be really convincing on motivation when you are talking about a wife taking her husband's life, taking the life of the father of her children. I think that jurors need to know what would motivate someone to do that. I think they've also done an incredible job of showing that this wasn't just about money, but it was also about kind of this lifestyle she wanted. the new boyfriend that she wanted, feelings of completely being trapped in this marriage and wanting out of it. It's more than just saying, "Hey, she had financial issues." It was a whole other thing. You made the point actually that I thought was so great about understanding that area, and at that time with kind of the a real estate boom they were going
Yeah.
through, and how it was creating these kind of overnight entrepreneurs and people who thought they're going to make a quick buck. And she goes from, getting her real estate license, and all of a sudden she's flipping millions of dollars in homes, and she's in
Right.
debt to the tune of $8 million, but she's got a bunch of assets. And I mean, those are staggering figures for somebody who's kind of still learning their way in the real estate industry. So I think they've done a very good job with that. I think that the housekeeper, Carmen, along with the drug dealer, and I don't mean that, just to be pejorative about him, but the person who sold the drugs, with Crozier, I think do enough to show that, hey, yeah, maybe we can't show the fentanyl in her hands, but we certainly show someone who, with all these motives, was out looking for incredibly deadly stuff. I mean, the idea that she's going back and saying, "I need something stronger."
Give me the Michael
That's
Jackson stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me the Michael Jackson stuff. That is to me really convincing. And then you add into that kind of her searches where, I mean, the one that kills me is where she's searching about uh women's prisons in Utah, and like, what are the conditions. I mean, she's got a lot of
She's weighing,
consciousness of guilt
yeah,
behavior and everything else. Yeah.
she's weighing her risk. Is this worth it?
Yeah.
And if I get
Yeah.
caught, is my life going to be okay still? Uh,
Yeah.
and actually, one of the things that's really unique about this case is, unlike the vast majority of cases where we've got male on female violence, this is one where a wife is allegedly killing her husband, and
Mm.
that probably is a lot to take for a jury as well. That's
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, we're not being sexist about it. It's difficult for jurors to
yeah.
just imagine a female committing a crime like this. Yeah, that's going to be something that the prosecution is going to have to get around to. But I think they've done a real good job of showing that, like, the sweet little Kouri that she may have been before all of this, and the woman that we see in court wearing the sweaters and looking all innocent, she was up to some real bad stuff, and there's a lot of people who felt very deceived by her.
Yeah, that presentation that she makes in court and always had, to me, it kind of looks like she kind of is trying to look like, I don't know what's happening to me here. That I cannot
Yeah,
believe that it's like, I am just as pure as the wind-driven snow. And
yeah,
they aren't making any arguments, at least I haven't caught any yet, where, oh, this is an abusive husband, she was protecting herself. No, their defense is, she had nothing to do with this. This couldn't possibly
yeah,
be. I mean, look at this innocent face. I can't even believe that you guys would bring such spurious charges against me. That's the way it kind of feels to me.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
what's going on your channel these days? What do you got over there?
Well, we're talking about this one for sure. That's a big case going on. We just, we had been covering Nancy Guthrie really heavily, and sadly, we've kind of had to step away a little bit because there's just not much development in that case. But today we are releasing our every Friday we do our weekly roundup, which is just kind of a look back at the week, and everything that took place. So that's coming out later this afternoon. Yeah, we're trying, man. We're we're
Yeah.
out there trying to cover as much as we can.
Well, you're obviously working hard. I appreciate your. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to call her the better half, right? She has been
Oh yeah,
hanging out in the comments. She's thank you very much, Tiff, for everything you're doing over there. Thanks for the super chat, getting us started there. If you guys are not subscribed to Courtroom Confidential, I highly recommend it. There is a link in the description below. Josh Ritter, thank you so much for joining me, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a good night. Thanks so much. Yeah, Josh Ritter. He's the best, and well, he's the second best. Tiff Ritter is probably the best, and I deeply appreciate them coming on to talk about this here on my channel. And I'm not making it up. There are channels that I just love, love, love. Courtroom Confidential is one of those. That is a terrific team. Josh is just a mound of very good information and experience. So thank you, thank you, thank you, Josh. All right, we got a few minutes here, guys. I didn't get to check out where you guys are tuning in from, and by then it's all already gone from my system. So why don't you and I move on to the next segment of the old show? Let's head on to 3 questions, shall we? Here we go.
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Ta-da! In 3 questions, guys, I answer, not surprisingly, 3 questions. Now, these are your questions that you send in to me to 3questions@gavinfish.com. 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's spelled out THREE questions@gavinfish.com. And you know, this is kind of funny. I get like personal messages saying, hey, how do I send in a question again? It's 3questions@gavinfish.com. Okay, just send them there. I solemnly promise that I will answer all the questions that come in. I will do so to the best of my ability, the best of my knowledge, and do so honestly. I ask that if the question applies to you in the live chat, just tell us what the answers to those questions are for you. And I do not, however, give you the control over what order I answer the questions. So tonight we are going to get into 3 questions. Number 1 comes in from Debbie. Would you recommend being a reporter to a young person as a profession? Why and or why not? Yeah, I would. Absolutely. It's what are some of the things that you get from being a reporter? Well, you get to know your community really well. Actually, I should say this. I am a local reporter. I did not go to J school. I kind of fell into being a reporter. I reached out to a couple of publications in my area after I had already started YouTube and asked them if they wanted somebody to write features for them, like crime features. And then that turned into, hey, would you like to work as a reporter? So I came to this career late in my life and have learned on the job kind of the way everybody did before journalism school took off. But what are some of the things? So as a local reporter, yeah, well, you get to see things in the community and meet people in the community that you otherwise wouldn't meet. We do tend to get into our little tribes, and we kind of engage with the people that we know and who we, who are in our neighborhoods, and building those natural friendships. As a reporter, you do kind of have to go out and you meet new people and you meet elected officials. I don't like calling them leaders because I don't think they lead us anywhere, but they certainly are public servants, and it's good to know what it is that they're doing and to build those kinds of relationships. You also sometimes have to be confrontational, and I don't mind that at all. I don't like confrontation, but when confrontation is necessary, I engage in it. So, for example, in Venango County, PA, I think they've got a real problem with the Venango County Prison. I think that there are way too many people, former incarcerated people and former COs and staff, that are reporting things that are happening within the jail that are beyond the pale. Now, at the same time, I think that the county commissioners and the jail board are working their best in order to make things better there, but the fact remains that it's still bad. So people that I respect and like, I have to push back on, and that is something that I think it's good for everybody. I think it's good personally for me to say, hey, I'm going to confront this. This is something I dislike. I'm going to go after you, Commissioner so-and-so. And then also at the same time be able to respect and admire and like that person for the other things. So, people are complex, and being a local reporter is a very good profession. I would suggest that you go to journalism school in today's day and age. Question number 2 is, do you or some of your staff? Well, that is, I don't really have staff. I have volunteers, and I have my sweetie pie, my snuggly bear, my one and only. Okay, I have Wanda. Hey, Wanda, can you check in? Can you just tell us you're here, Wanda? Wanda, that is nice. Oh, that, what is that? What is that guitar? I can tell that those are steel strings, but what is that? She's talking to me in my ear. She bought that. That was a Fender Mustang she bought in 1963. Oh, pretty cool. It sounded acoustic. Wanda, you're a magician. And Javi, we haven't had any button pressing problems yet. Anyway, do you or some of your staff go back and read comments and questions that have been placed on the chat after the live? Okay, I'm gonna come clean on this. All right. I just have a hard time with trolls. and there are some, our amazing moderators led by Autumn, but Mooney and Robin are amazing moderators, keep the live chat classy. But the chat or the comments later on, I have a hard time with the trolls. And I don't want to be like, banning people and doing all that stuff. I just don't want to be that guy. Now, so I don't typically go back and read comments. However, my Kimberly, my sweetie pie, my snuggly bear, my one and only, she does. Every morning, she wakes up and she goes through the latest live stream. She reads the comments and she tells me the things that I should be paying attention to. So she does that for me because she is long-suffering and awesome. So I guess the answer to your question is I don't, but my staff does. Kimberly does. Javi, do you go and read any chats? Javi says no. Javi's job description, he just said, is flipping toggles, rotating knobs, and pushing buttons. That is his job description. So reading is out for you, Javi. I ought to get that guy a microphone. Reading is out for Javi. Wanda, how about you? Do you read anything, or what do you do back there, Wanda? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a sweetheart. Give me some of that sugar. Here we go. Oh. Yeah. So, Wanda, that is nice. I didn't even know you could fit a piano in that area. Did I buy? No, she brought, that's her piano. Okay. All right. Question number 3 is, if you were a suspect in a crime mystery novel, what would your suspicious but totally innocent habit be? This is a great question, and I want your answers, okay? I want your answers. If you were a suspect in a crime mystery novel, what would your suspicious but totally innocent habit be? I think I would be the guy that is always around crime scenes. I'd be like the guy, I'd have a backpack on, I'd have a hat down over my head, and I'd be outside of the yellow tape, and I would just be like looking in, and every once in a while the police would look up and say, "Hey, I recognize that. Why is he always here? Do we have a serial on our hands?" And then when we make eye contact, I would be like, "I'm out of here," and I would turn and go. And that would add to the suspicion. And then they would, because of my suspicious behavior, they would get some magisterial judge, some lower judge to sign off on a warrant. And that they would come, they would take my computers, and they would see my Google search history is full of missing persons, murders, and stuff like that. So that would be my suspicious but totally innocent habit, and it would be, I don't want to make it so that the police can't get their guy, but that would definitely be me. I'd love to hear what you guys say. And while you are getting ready to type in there with your little fingers, or if you're on a computer with your fingers and thumbs, we will hop into a couple headlines. Here we go.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie. I got a few headlines that I want to share with you guys. Let me go to the right one. This is the right button. Here we go. Guthrie case, and Josh was just talking about this. Guthrie case, investigators... there's no colon in there, Gavin. Javi, can I get a take 2 on that? You're going to edit that out and post. Good. Okay. Guthrie case investigators question neighbors about any internet issues on the night she disappeared. This is interesting. This is coming to us from NBC News. Liz Kreutz and Rebecca Cohen write, investigators hunting for leads in the search for Nancy Guthrie have asked people living in her neighborhood whether they noticed any disruptions to their internet connections on the night of her disappearance. Both the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI were out canvassing in Guthrie's neighborhood in the Catalina foothills in Tucson on Thursday. This would be yesterday, going door to door, talking to residents and asking if they noticed anything about their connectivity. Several different homeowners from the neighborhood told NBC News that the agents who came by their homes Thursday specifically asked them if they had noticed any disruptions or issues with their internet service the night that Guthrie went missing. According to those homeowners, the agents told them that several people who live in the area had mentioned that there were glitches with their internet that night. 2 homeowners said that when the investigators came to their home on Thursday, they additionally asked about video footage from January 11th. This is a date that we have heard before. Authorities have not confirmed that they are looking into anything on January 11th and have not said why they're asking homeowners about it. 3 homeowners who spoke to NBC News Thursday all said they were either asleep or not home at the time of Guthrie's abduction and couldn't say if they had internet issues. But one couple who lives adjacent to Guthrie and who spoke to NBC News on Friday said that would be today, did notice a glitch with one of their Ring cameras that night. The couple said they have 4 Ring cameras on their property and that the one that is closest to Guthrie's home said not available when they went to look for footage from the overnight hours on the day of the abduction. So some technology issues seem to be at the heart of what the FBI and the sheriffs are investigating. To me, that might be an indication that there were technologically savvy people working to get Nancy. But I don't know. I do not know. From Mountaintop Media, guys, this is in the case of the murder of Judge Kevin Mullins at the hands, we will say the killing of Kevin Mullins at the hands of Sheriff Mickey Steins, who is on trial for murder. Remember, the defense made a motion for the judge to recuse himself. From Mountaintop Media, Ralph Davis writes, Dateline Whitesburg, Kentucky, Special Judge Christopher Coran will remain on the Sean Mickey Steins murder case. Steins is the former Letcher County, blah, blah, blah. Back in December, defense attorneys filed a motion asking the judge to recuse himself from the case after they received information that Coran and Mullins sat next to each other at a judicial conference just 7 days before Mullins' death. But on Friday, Coran denied the motion and vouched for his impartiality on the case. Quote, let me get some water here. Quote, to be sure, Judge Mullins and I shared the legal profession and may, in that regard, be viewed as colleagues, Coran wrote in his ruling, but our nominal, purely professional association is not the degree of relationship which would interfere with my duty to uphold and apply the law and to perform judicial duties fairly and impartially or suggest an appearance of partiality. Back in January, the Supreme Court declined to step into the case, leaving the matter to Coran to decide. However, the High Court left the door open for the defense to appeal if Coran elected to remain in the case. So no word yet on if the defense plans to appeal. We're keeping our eye on that case. Lastly, the Colorado Sun, written by Carol McKinley, wrote a long, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a long primer into what we're going to see in the pending trial against Barry Morphew in the murder of his wife, Suzanne Morphew. Barry Morphew's October murder trial promises to center around a highly restrictive concoction of potent chemicals the autopsy revealed were discovered in his dead wife's remains. The pre-mixed chemical compound marketed as a patented product under the acronym BAM is a regulated blend of butorphanol, azaparone, and medetomidine used almost exclusively by biologists and veterinarians to sedate large animals. According to the grand jury indictment, the El Paso County coroner's chief toxicologist found that all three of the individual chemicals that comprise BAM were present in Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow. Suzanne Morphew died as a result of homicide by unspecified means in the setting of butorphanol, azaparone, and medetomidine intoxication, the autopsy found. So, I think everything is going to center around that. Remember, this is a photo that has been released of the cap to a tranquilizer dart. Barry Morphew did admit, at least according to police in his interviews, that he shot deers with tranquilizers to, in his words, steal their horns, though they're not horns, sir, they're antlers. And we know that he was a deer farmer before they moved to Colorado. So it does look like they're starting to ramp up their reportage of the Barry Morphew case, and I am keeping my eye on that. And those guys are your headlines. And we will get into some of your comments here. Let's see. Go down into, let's see. Just Ducky says, do you think Kouri Richins will take the stand? I think she would be stupid to take the stand. Does that mean she probably will take the stand? I don't think her lawyers are stupid. I don't think she'll take the stand. Susie Q. Susie Q, what's the most horrible crime I have covered? That sounds like a question for 3questions@gavinfish.com. Probably, but I'm going to answer it because you're new here and I appreciate you being here. At least I think you're new here. In Venango County, Pennsylvania, there was a murder of a 2.5-year-old little boy at the hands of his mother's boyfriend, who beat him to death and was convicted of it. And it was, so sad. So sad. And in the trial, they showed autopsy photos of this little baby boy. He was just the sweetest little thing, the most adorable little thing. And his father was in the gallery watching the trial to ensure that the murderer of his little boy did face justice, was convicted, and it was the most horrifying and saddening experience maybe of my entire life. Oh, so sad. So sad. But yeah. Mooney says maybe Dory can help with reading comments. Dory's not Dory's not on staff. I have retained her CV. As I recall, her resume wasn't nearly as long as Wanda's. Wanda's was many pages. It was bound with like really long staples that had a really nice cover. Dory's not so much, but I have retained it just in case we need somebody to read comments. Just Ducky says, my suspicious activity would be passing out baked goods. You would be at the crime scene, like feeding everybody. What kind of baked goods would you do there, Ducky? I'm curious. Would they be like on the savory side? Would they be everything bagels with schmear, or would they be more like donuts for the cops? And you'd be passing them out. You wouldn't be selling them. You'd be doing it out of the goodness of your heart. That is great. Pamela says, I would be the girl eating a Snickers bar. Oh, that is funny. That is funny. Jules and me says, my Google searches would have me in the pokey quick. And Crime Addiction says, that is exactly what I thought. I would try to be right there checking it out. So funny. The Toothpick Bandit. Oh, Autumn's asking the song at the beginning of this. Before we even started, I was listening to a song and I asked you guys, I told you guys you could get brownie points if you could guess the 1984 song that I was listening to that is it's on my list of best last slow song at the high school dance songs. Okay. And now I have to remember what it was. Hold on. I know it was Survivor. How can I convince you? The search is over. It's The Search is Over by Survivor. That was the song, Autumn. Great. Thank you for asking me that question. I would have forgotten. Let's see. Put a GF before a question for Gavin. Melissa N. Let me see if I can find one for Melissa N. Because sometimes they just don't show up on my side unless there's that GF. Diane Ferris says her suspicious but completely innocent habit would be read, listen, and watch all the related material. Diane Ferris asks, what did the jury decide in the double murder you covered? Oh, the one that I was on the jury? We convicted 1 count of second-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree murder, and it was negotiated. I went in there going 2 counts of first-degree murder. But the people, my co-jury panelists, several of them couldn't get there, and I was able to, in addition to 2 other people on the panel, were able to convince those holdouts that maybe it was second-degree murder on the first shot, but on the second shot, he definitely decided to kill that person. So that's what we did. Barbara Olson, not Barbasol. Barb Olson says, I believe you said Wanda's CV also came with a cassette tape of her musical talents. It did. Do I have any? What other instrument do you have in your room today, Wanda? Oh, she has my favorite electric piano. You have the Rhodes with you today? Play us something really nice on the Rhodes. Wanda. Oh, that is delicious. Yeah, she did. She did submit a cassette tape. I had to find my old deck, but I was able to listen to it. The noise floor was high, so there's a lot of hissing on that tape. But Wanda, you've turned out, she's been terrific. Now, I will say that she is kind of wisecracking. You know you are. Wanda is kind of wisecracking, so we won't be putting a microphone in her little recording booth. But she's got so much in there. She's got the vibes in there. Wanda, can we hear the vibes again? Oh yeah, that's nice. I can't even believe you can put a full set in there. It's awesome. Chicago Marie says, I'll take an everything bagel. And the tank is hilarious tonight. Yes, indeed. Let's see. Venus Gal, take 5 or Snickers for me. Searches, I make others search those things. No way I will. That is funny. Okay, guys, thank you so much for spending time with me tonight. Josh and Tiff Ritter, thank you very much for joining me. Josh on video and Tiff in the live comments. Thank you. Let's see, one more comment I'm going to grab before we go from Melissa. I wanted to know if any updates on the Alan Greenberg case. None that I know of. No. I also did see that he was working at the Olympics. Yes, I did see that. And, yeah. But no, and just so you guys know, Ellen's parents are like my my set of bonus parents. I love them to death. I talk to them. It should be more frequently, but it's still frequently. I still talk to Sandy more than I talk to my own mother. Those people are just amazing. But, and I check in on the frequent. There is nothing new to report. And as soon as there is, I will definitely be reporting that. With that, guys, just a quick reminder, quick little remindery poo that you can hang out with us on or in the fish tank, which is on Facebook. Now I'm on other socials as well. I am on Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Those are the places where I post pretty regularly. Facebook, though, is where we hang out and talk about all things true crime. So if you would like to join us there, we actually just added Emmy as a moderator there. Emmy, thank you very much for joining us as a moderator. If anybody else has any expertise in moderation and keeping the conversations going, specifically on Facebook, I'd love your help. Reach out to me. Go to my website, gavinfish.com. Click on this little icon right here, the little envelope on the upper right-hand corner. That will open a little, eventually it'll load a little form, and just choose on the message type I'd like to volunteer. We do some vetting, and Autumn or somebody else will send you kind of the deal on that. But if you would, I'm specifically looking for more people that can moderate the tank. Spend a little more time in there. We joke around about having a staff. We have terrific volunteers. I'm so grateful to my volunteers. But running a YouTube channel, it does take quite a bit of time, and getting more help would be terrific. Also, case researchers would be awesome. If you are very good at finding cases and specifically finding documents. These are, criminal complaints, affidavits of probable cause, things like that. Boy, could I use your help. Go ahead and reach out to me on my website, gavinfish.com. Click on the little icon, and it will take you again to this contact me page, and one of my intrepid and amazing volunteers will reach out. With that, thanking you for your attendance for this whole week, I bid you adieu. I hope you take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.